Hi everyone, it's John from What Up. Welcome back to another video, and today we're aiming to answer the question, what happens next? You've watched the third season of The Wheel of Time, you fall in love with a bunch of the characters, you really invested into Matt's, or Rand's, Perrin's, Elaine's, Egwene's, it doesn't matter. You're invested into some or all of the character storylines, and then bam, Amazon cancels the show, is not renewing for season 4, and we're not going to find out what happens to any of the characters. That's always the way, isn't it, right? They cancel the show, and then they come out with something like The War of the Worlds with Ice Cubes. I digress. Today, we're aiming to answer the question, what happens next? You've seen the show, it ended in a cliffhanger on all the storylines, and you want to know what happens next, but you're not sure if you want to complete a 14-book fantasy series. Well, don't worry, What Up's got you. We're going to walk through each of the plot lines for every one of the major characters from the show in a new series of video called What Happens Next. So if you love the Wheel of Time as much as I do, if you're as excited about the prospect of all the new Wheel of Time stuff coming out in the coming months and years, if you want to follow us for both show and book content or book reviews or other nerdy stuff, consider making us your home for all of those things. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course, folks, tell all of your friends. Now, we're not going to do a full book recap. That's not what this series of videos is going to be for. And yes, folks, it's going to be a series of them. There's going to be a lot of these videos. It will be the bread and butter of the channel the next little bit because there's a lot to get through. What we aim on doing is taking the main characters from the show. We'll walk through their storylines from the book series. We're not going to pick up on tertiary storylines or other things that are going on. And I'll explain things as best I can and keep it as simple as possible for just the characters that you already know if you've watched the show. Because let's face it, the books aren't for everyone. They're great, they're amazing, and I would recommend everyone read them, but not everyone wants to sit down and read a series that big. And you still want to know what happens next because it was not wrapped up in a neat little bow. So we're going to follow the main characters. In today's video and the series of videos that we're going to be doing, we're using maps by Dimension Door. Now, Dimension Door is a cartographer, and he does some absolutely amazing work. I've left a link to his Instagram down below in the description box, so if you folks want to follow him along there, or go to his Etsy and pick up some of his printed or downloadable maps. He does other things than the Wheel of Time. He does maps for all kinds of different stuff, and he also does classes on how to make certain things in maps. He's absolutely amazingly talented, and folks, when I tell you the maps are detailed, told you the maps are gorgeous. This is absolutely amazing. Again, Dimension Door's Instagram is down below in the description box. Go follow him over there, and if you want to pick up some of his stuff, his Etsy's in the description of his Instagram. One of the things I want to mention before we start diving into everything is this map is not something that most show watchers probably are very familiar with. It looks pretty busy, there's a whole lot going on, and you're not totally comfortable or familiar with the layout of the world unless you've done your own digging online on your own, because it was not shown in the show. It didn't follow the characters like a lot of other fantasy shows do. Fantasy shows that I've watched in the past, including Game of Thrones, will showcase on the map where certain things are and show the audience so you have a sense of time. You have a sense of where they're at and distance. The Wheel of Time didn't do that. I don't know if it's because they thought it was overdone or done by other fantasy shows and fantasy movies, but it's one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy about watching things is knowing where characters are, where they're at. When I read a book series, especially The Wheel of Time, I get a map open next to me so I can figure out where people are and what's around them. They didn't do that in the show. So it might be a little confusing at first, but you'll pick up on it pretty quick because this is pretty much the entirety of the world. There is a much wider world for the Wheel of Time, but 90% of the book series happens in this one section of the map. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this series. Also, you'll notice there's a red hand with a 4 in it down there. Most people have watched my videos before, know about my spoiler warnings. However, for those of you that are new or that are just finding this series for the first time, and I suspect this will be a popular series of people who watch the show but haven't read the books, that shows which book I'm spoiling up to. So in this case, I'm spoiling up to book 4 of The Wheel of Time. That's The Shadow Rising. So if you haven't read books 1 through 4 of The Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, or seen the first 3 seasons of the show, I'm going to ruin plot points and character arcs from both those mediums. But let's face it, because the show isn't exactly where people are in the book series, they followed some of the storylines pretty close, but not all of them. We have to use the books to figure out what's going on, so there's going to be spoilers for the books. That's just a given, but I'm also warning people in case they didn't realize that. The other thing is we have to do a little bit of housekeeping in today's video. The third season of the show did a very good job adapting some of the storylines for TV. However, a lot of the characters are not where they're supposed to be in the book series. Some of the characters that are not around anymore in the show are still around in the book series. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap what goes on in each of the storylines. We have 4 major storylines in the 3rd season. We have 1 for the 2 rivers, 1 for the Waste, 1 for the White Tower, and 1 for Tanchico. We'll do a recap of each, and then we'll talk about where the characters are at the end of the 4th book in that same area. And there's going to be some major differences here, folks. Just be forewarned, it's not exactly the same as the show, but we have to do that kind of setup because season 4 and beyond, scripts were not written, so we don't know where the show is going. We have to use the books as that medium. So we're going to start off today in the 2 Rivers. 2 Rivers is in the east of Andor, and it's where everything started in the Eye of the World, the very first book, and in the first episode of the first season, we get to see Emond's Field, we get to see the Westwood, Rand and Tam. That's where we're going back to right now for the first part of this video. All right, so we're going to follow a few main characters from the 3rd season. The first one is Faile. Faile is already in the 2 Rivers. She's there with another hunter for the Horn, Lord Luke. They're both looking for the Horn of Valier. She is from Saldea, and her real name is Zareen, and she calls herself Mandarb at first, which means blade, but that's also Lan's horse's name. Parn makes fun of her, so she changes her name to Faile. She's a pretty important character in the book series in 11 Years of Parents, so we're going to talk just a bit about her. Of course, Parn Ibera, he comes from the White Tower to go home. And when he comes from the White Tower to go home, he brings a few of his friends. He brings Loial the Ogier, he brings Bane and Chiad, the Maidens of the Spear. They travel through the ways from the White Tower to go to the 2 Rivers. While they're there, they also meet Alana and Maxim. Alana is the Green Aes Sedai that they already all know. Maxim is her warder, her one surviving warder at this point in the show. And when they show up, they figure out a few different things. The first thing is that Dane Bornhold is basically sort of the initial main antagonist in this storyline. He has the White Cloaks there, he finds out the Parn is there, and he is just ready to go after Parn. The whole point he went there is because he knew Parn was from the 2 Rivers, he knew Parn had killed his father Joffrey at the Battle of Falme, and he wants to bring Parn to justice. Padan Fain is masquerading as another White Cloak, Ordeth. He brings a bunch of dark friends, and he's the one responsible that brought all the Trollocs to the 2 Rivers. And of course, we're including Aram here. He's the tinker that picked up the sword at the end of episode 7, Golden Eyes, and sort of broke the way of the leaf. And we don't know what happens to him, so I'm including him in this because some people wanted to know what happens to Aram after that. So we have all these folks in the 2 Rivers. Essentially, Dane Bornhold wants to arrest Parn. Parn finds out that the White Cloaks and the Trollocs are there. He wants to rescue Matt's younger sisters and Matt's mother from the White Cloaks after he finds out they've been taken captive. He wants to kill all of the Trollocs and save his friends and family. Faile is sort of attached to him at this point because he's exciting and he may lead her to the Horn of Valier. Lord Luke, the one traveling with Faile, is on screen a few different times in the show, but he's not super important in the show. He's not built up. He is much more important in the books. We'll get to that in just a minute. It culminates in Parn rescuing Matt's sisters, finding out that Natty Cawthon has been burned and killed by the White Cloaks. They successfully defend the town against the Trollocs. They find out that a good portion of the White Cloaks are dark friends led by Ordeth or Padan Fain. Dane Bornhold turns against him once Parn realizes that he's a dark friend and lets him know. They have a huge battle. Parn has Padan Fain in the ground, spares his life, and Padan Fain takes the Trollocs and they leave. At the end of all of that, Parn gives himself up to Dane Bornhold for killing Joffrey Bornhold, his father, at the Battle of Falme. And it ends on a huge cliffhanger with Faile, Bane, and Chiad in the town with Alana and Maxim, and Aram, of course, after Parn's arrested. In the midst of all of this, Loial plays a very important part in this storyline of the book, in the show rather. He goes to the Waygate to stop the influx of Trollocs, to destroy it, goes into the ways, uses this big giant hammer, smashes the walkway to the Waygate, and then sacrifices himself to save his friends. So Loial is out of the show. He was written out at this point. He was killed. That's where we're at the end of episode 7, Golden Eyes. A massive cliffhanger. We've lost a main character. Padan Fain is still on the run. Parn has given himself up. He's been arrested by the White Cloaks. We end the season with Faile and Bane and Chiad scouting the White Cloak camp just outside of the 2 Rivers. looking like they're going to get Parn back. There's a whole lot of things on the go, and it couldn't have been much more of a cliffhanger. And for those of you that really, really enjoy Parn and company as your favorite characters in the show, probably pissed me off, not knowing what happens next. All right, so we have to add a couple of characters and change some things around if we're going to explain what happens afterwards, because things are a bit different in the book series. We're adding Varen Sedai to the mix. Varen Sedai is in the Two Rivers in this plot line, and she's a really important part of that plot. We also have to mention a couple of different things. Faile and Parn are already a couple at this point. They met during the actions of Book 3, The Dragon Reborn, which was largely ignored by the show and just kind of skipped over. They were going to adapt it at a later point, according to the showrunner. They're not going to get to do that at this point. But they've already met, they've already formed a relationship, they've already slept together, they're already hanging out together, they're already in love. So they're a couple at this point. Now, Parn does decide to go home to the Two Rivers because he had heard rumors that the White Cloaks were there harassing his friends and his family, and they basically wanted to arrest him for the death of other White Cloaks, which he did do. In the Eye of the World, which this part of the book was not adapted in the first season, Parn had killed a bunch of White Cloaks in defense of wolves when he had just found out that he was a wolf brother. And that earns him the title of Dark Friend by White Cloaks everywhere. Dane Bornhold also blames Parn for the death of his father, Joffrey Bornhold. Now, in the show, Parn kills Joffrey. In the book series, Parn does not. Joffrey dies during the Battle of Falme due to no one's fault at all, pretty much. He just dies during that battle. But Dane knows Parn's a dark friend in his heart of hearts, knows that he's killed other White Cloaks, he blames him for the death of his father, and he is the one that brought the White Cloaks to Emond's Field to sort of harass everybody, to draw Parn out so he can arrest him for those charges. Parn hears all this and decides, I better go back home to the Two Rivers. A much better way, I think, in my opinion, going home to the Two Rivers for that reason than just, I'm going to go home, which happened in the show. He takes Loial with him because he wants to go through the ways to get to the Two Rivers pretty fast. He does not want to take Faile. They get into a big fight about it because he knows he's going home to give himself up to be arrested, and he doesn't want the love of his life to be there to witness it. She decides she's coming anyway. She recruits Bane and Chiad, the two Aiel maidens of the spear, and they travel to the Two Rivers, following behind Loial and Parn. In addition, there's one extra person in this journey that we're not going to mention a whole lot. His name is Gaul. He's another Aiel. He's friends with Parn. He's not terribly important to many plot lines in the book. He's just sort of a flavor text to have Parn have a friend, so to speak. We'll mention him here and there, but again, he's not one of the main characters in the show. We're not going to follow him too much. They show up in the Two Rivers. Once they're in the Two Rivers, there's something wrong. There's no animals. Everything's pretty still. Parn enters the wolf dream to see what's going on, and he meets someone named Brigida. Brigida is a hero of the Horn. She has a silver bow, shoots silver arrows, has long blonde braids, and is very well known. That's when we kind of find out that Heroes of the Horn are bound to the wheel, and they live in the wolf dream, which is also Teleran Rioid. Teleran Rioid is the world of dreams, and you see that a lot in the show with Egwene and the other dreamers, Lanfear entering it and leaving it at will. Parn's wolf dream is the same thing. He's entering that dream. It's Teleran Rioid. That's where he's going. That's a big part of his character, something we didn't really see in the show. She tells him that there are Trollocs there. They get to see the camps because he's wandering around in the wolf dream because he can kind of teleport back and forth, take huge steps to go to different places. And there's this gentleman named Slayer. Slayer's killing all the animals, and he's wrapped up in this mix of things somehow. Him and Parn get into a couple of different fights throughout this whole plot line, and he's fairly important to Parn's story because he's killing wolves, and Parn doesn't like that because Parn loves wolves. And when a wolf dies in the wolf dream, it's dead forever. It's never spun back out again. So it's kind of a big deal. They head into Emond's Field. When they go to Emond's Field, they find out a couple of different things. That Varen and Alanna Sedai are there. Now, we've left Maxim as part of this kind of mix because Alanna Sedai in the books has one warder. It's not Maxim, it's someone different. And to be totally fair, he is not a big part of the books in any way, shape, or form. The warder's mentioned a couple of different times, same as Varen's warder, but they're not. We don't get point of views from them. They're not important to the story. They don't advance the story in any major escalating way. They're just kind of there. So we'll leave Maxim as a placeholder with Alanna when we move her around because her warder's always with her. But he's not really in the books. They find out that the White Cloaks were there harassing people and have arrested Natty Cawthon and the two girls. Parn mounts a rescue effort. They head out, they rescue the two girls. Parn gets injured during it. They also rescue Natty Cawthon. Natty's not dead. She died in the show in a horrible fashion. She survives quite neatly in the book series. Gets them all back. He's healed by Alana Sedai. And then they realize that the White Cloaks are there, but they're not really helping with the Trollocs very much. The White Cloaks want to arrest Parn, but Parn says, you help us defend the town against the Trollocs, I'll let you arrest me all you want. And they agree. Parn starts bringing in people from around the area. He brings in the other farmers. He brings in the Tinkers that are there. He brings them all into the major center of the town, starts building defenses, sort of, kind of, like we saw in the show. Loial goes to the Waygate to close it, much like the show, because that's where all the Trollocs are coming from. In the book series, it's a lot more simple. He walks up to the Waygate, he pulls a leaf off, and he comes back. He lives just fine. He does not die like he does in the show. A lot of people really love Loial, and they wanted to see him continue on in the show. Well, he's a big part of the books going forward, folks. He's there for the rest of the book series, pretty much. He comes back. They have their big battle. In the meantime, we figure out Slayer is killing more animals. He's kind of working with the Trollocs. They think there's other things on the go. Parn and him fight in the Wolf Dream. He injures him, and then we find out that Lord Luke, the gentleman that was with Fael in the show, he was also in the Two Rivers as a Hunter of the Horn, kind of being annoying to everyone. He's Slayer. We find that out, and he kind of escapes town. Trollocs all attack. When they all attack, the villagers, Parn, the Aes Sedai, everyone repels them except the White Cloaks. They just sit there looking pretty. Even the Tinkers help out in their small way that they can. The women and older children of the town pick up pitchforks and hoes. They help the attack. They repel all of the Trollocs. They repel the invaders. At the end of it, they're like, what's going to happen next? There's this huge wave of Trollocs incoming. They know they're coming. Parn finds this out. And he's like, we can't survive this big wave of Trollocs. It's not going to happen. So he tells Fael, I need you to go tell the queen what's going on. Have her send the guards. We'll hold out till then. Fael knows it's not true, that they're not going to hold out. And she says, okay, I'll go. I'm going to take Bane and Chia with me to go see the queen, but we have to get married first. So Parn and Fael get married. So not only do they have an established relationship in the books, they're married at this point. She takes off with the two Aiel. This huge wave of Trollocs eventually comes in, and they're doing everything they can to defend the village. They're pushed in further and further. The White Cloaks, again, doing nothing to help. Fael shows up with all of the other people from the surrounding towns. They help fight off the Trollocs. She never went to see the queen. She rounded people up to help. They win. They save the day. Parn and Fael kiss. There's cheering, and the White Cloaks are like, we want to arrest you. Parn goes, no, you didn't help out. You didn't do our deal. Get out of here. And sends the White Cloaks packing. Now, something I haven't mentioned about all of this is Padan Fain. In the show, he's Ordeth, and he shows up with the White Cloaks, and he's responsible for the Trollocs coming to the Two Rivers. Sort of the same in the books. He's Ordeth. He's with the White Cloaks. He is responsible for all the crappy things that are going on, but he does not really take part in the battle. He does not really front and center. He is not a huge part of anything. He's just sort of there, and when the battle's done, he kind of skitters away in his own with everyone else. So he does survive it as well in the book series, but he is not at the forefront like he is in the show. In amidst all of this, the other major change is Aram. In the show, you see Aram picking up a sword to defend a young child, basically by accident. In the book series, that's not the case. In the book series, he's mad. His wagons have been attacked. He's done. He's finished. He's finished. He wants to do something to defend his friends and his family. He picks up a massive wolf pommel sword and says to Parn, teach me how to use this. His parents, or his grandparents freak out. The other Tinkers freak out. They disown him. And then Parn gets Tam Althor, who is a blade master, to show him how to use the sword, and he just puts himself into that. he becomes an important part of Parn's storyline going forward, but he is on his way to being a blade master because he puts so much time and effort into learning the sword. He actively wants to do it. It wasn't an accident like in the show. So, the end of the 4th book. Parn and Faile are married. They're in the Two Rivers. Two Rivers is victorious. The White Cloaks have left. Ordeth is not there. Dane Bornhold is not there. Loial is alive and well with them. Varen and Alana Sedai round up a bunch of the Two Rivers young girls as recruits. They leave the village as well. They're taking them to the tower. Aram is there, kind of following Parn around like a puppy, learning the sword constantly. Bane and Shiad are with Faile, and Parn is sort of lifted up as the Lord of the Two Rivers, Lord Golden Eyes, and they that's where this storyline ends up. It's a much more well wrapped up, neat little package of a storyline at the end of book 4 than the huge cliffhanger that we got in the show. All right, so that's the Two Rivers storyline. Initially, I was going to put all the storylines into one video and then set them all up to the end of book 4 and say, this is where we're at, and then carry on. That was 20 minutes. So we're going to split this up. We'll do, the next video will be probably the White Tower stuff. Then after the White Tower video, we'll do one for the Waste, and then we'll do one for Tenchiko. And that way, at the end of those 4 videos, all 4 storylines will be set up exactly where they have to go, and we will go book by book with those characters, where they're going to be at, what they're doing in the subsequent videos that are coming out. So I hope you folks enjoyed this. I hope those of you who watch the show get some sort of closure from these videos of what's going to happen next, because it doesn't look like we're going to be getting more seasons of the show. But who knows? It's still early yet. There's plenty of time for anything to happen. So we may eventually at one point or another see more, but I really don't think at this point in time it's going to happen anytime soon. So if you like this kind of video, if you like what's going on here, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know who your favorite characters are from the show, and if you're surprised, if you watched the show and did not read the books, if you're surprised in how things actually ended up in the books versus the show. Thanks so much for sticking with us here to the very end, folks. Here's to many more.